Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 9th of August, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So apologies for missing yesterday's episode, everyone. It was my 12-year anniversary with my fiance. I decided to take the night off, went into the city for a nice dinner and all of that. And well, I decided to kind of take time off when the, biggest events in crypto happen, it seems. This has happened multiple times to me in the past, so it's quite funny. But there's a lot to go through, as you can see on my tabs here. This is actually one of the bigger episodes. Probably going to go over 30 minutes here today, but I'll try not to keep it going too long. But I think the first thing we need to cover is the Tornado Cash sanctioning. Now, I'm going to give a full recap of what happened, and kind of my thoughts on this. But firstly, I wanted to start off by reading out this tweet that I put out where I said, it's been an overall sad 24 hours for the crypto ecosystem due to this Tornado Cash stuff. It really reinforces the fact that we need to decentralize everything if we want any of this stuff we're building to work long term. We either get truly decentralized apps and services, or we get CeFi, centralized finance, and traditional finance, but just quote unquote on a blockchain, which is not very interesting, right? So, to recap what happened with Tornado Cash, basically the US Treasury Department put sanctions on the Tornado Cash smart contract addresses and associated addresses. I'm pretty sure they put sanctions on Tornado Cash's Gitcoin donation address and things like that, which was just insane. And they also seems to have suspended, well, not they, but Microsoft, who owns GitHub, has suspended Roman Sia, one of the Tornado Cash devs, GitHub accounts. And he goes, he's writing open source code illegal now. So there's a lot of ramifications here of what the Treasury Department has decided to do, over the last 24 hours. Now, what is Tornado Cash? For those of you who may not know, it is a privacy mixer. So essentially what you can do is you can send an amount of ETH or USDC into it, and then you can kind of mix it through the smart contracts, and then on the other end, it's supposed to basically be clean, so it can't be traced back to the original wallet that you funded it with. Now, many people have used this before, obviously, and obviously the U.S. Treasury Department has sanctioned this address due to concerns over money laundering, terrorism financing, all that kind of stuff that they usually say. And I personally think that this has come as a reaction to maybe the Ronin bridge hack that was perpetrated by Lazarus, which is the APT or Advanced Persistent Threat out of North Korea. I think that's it, because they use Tornado Cash, and it's obviously being used by other kind of criminals before, other kind of people who have hacked smart contracts and stuff like that. But it's also been used for a lot of legit things. And this is where I think the issue comes from, is where this just seems like a very strong overreaction and kind of very strong regulation to invoke such a strong kind of a consequence here to some of these things that we've seen play out. And there's actually a great thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description below here from Reza, who basically lists, completely legal reasons to use Tornado Cash that has nothing to do with criminal activity or terrorism financing or anything like that. And I'll list off the reasons here. Say you get paid in crypto and don't want your employer knowing all your financial details. Well, you'll just wash it through Tornado Cash, right? You'll kind of clean it out so that your employer can't just kind of pay you and then, at your address, and then have access to everything that you're kind of doing on chain. Obviously, that's something that is not a criminal activity. That's something that everyone should be able to do. Second point, you pay for a service in ETH and don't want them to be able to see everything you've ever done on chain. So that's obviously perfectly legit reason. You're worried that they might not let you into a super secret chat if they know your wealth came from aping into AskRocket69. This is actually pretty legit. It might sound funny, but your on-chain kind of footprint is kind of like an identity for you, right? And you want to preserve that identity. You want that identity to be basically what you want it to be, not what it kind of it gets leaked to be in terms of privacy, right? For example, if you're kind of doing something and you have not just a token, but an NFT or whatever, maybe you did some stuff on your address that may, without context, look, look scrupulous to kind of prying eyes. You just want to kind of have a separation there, a separation of concerns. The other important points here, you've been doxxed and you are being harassed online. Obviously, you want to kind of clean your address. You want to donate to a polarizing cause. That's obviously very, very important. You want to anonymously gift me 1,000 ETH. You're bothered by the thought that everyone knows your address, knows more about your wealth than most of your close friends and family members. And you think crypto will achieve mainstream adoption, meaning everyone will have access to all this information. such as retailers, banks, potential employers, and you question if they will use that information ethically. So all very legit reasons here. Now, the obvious kind of like thing that people will say is, well, can't you just do all this to a centralized exchange? Can't you send funds to a centralized exchange address, and then it obviously gets deposited into their kind of like hot wallet, and then if you want to withdraw to a new wallet, you just withdraw out of their hot wallet. Yes, you can do that. Like, that's obviously what a lot of people do today. They may use Tornado Cash, they may use other solutions, but a lot of people use centralized exchanges to, I guess, like, clean their addresses. Is this an ideal solution? No, it's not, because as soon as you put funds into a centralized exchange, they're at major risk of being kind of like frozen, right? Like, I actually, people will say the risk is low. I mean, it depends on the exchange, but like, it's more than just having the funds in your Ethereum address, obviously, and custodying it yourself, right? For example. So, as soon as you send it to a centralized exchange, a lot of these exchanges have hundreds, if not thousands, of employees that would have access to this information. Now, they could leak that information, right, out to everyone, and then immediately everything would be doxed. Like, literally everything. Like, because of the fact that even if you have like new deposit addresses that you can generate, that's still all stored on the servers of these centralized exchanges. So it's just a really, really bad thing if that information ever gets leaked, or if the exchange gets hacked and the database gets hacked and that information gets leaked that way too. So that's not a solution. That's not even comparable to something like Tornado Cash, which lets you do, full on-chain privacy, essentially. Like, if you can kind of like justify the cost, because it just depends how much you're running through it. But there is small increments that you can do, and you can do ETH or USDC. And I'll talk about the USDC thing in a bit, actually, which is kind of another thing that happened today. But essentially, there are very valid reasons to be doing this. So I really hate the kind of rhetoric that people say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. I don't believe that is that is kind of like the case here. And I don't believe that. I don't even believe in when people say that. I think that's just like a really silly thing to say. And I obviously really believe in the fundamental right to privacy here. Because at the end of the day, if you say things like, or if you justify the actions that the government takes here by saying, I've got nothing to hide, so I've got nothing to fear. Okay, well then literally put all of your information online for everyone to see, right? And then they'll say, oh, well, no, I don't want everyone seeing it, but the government seeing it is fine. I'm like, but that's just weird, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's one party or everyone. Like the thing is that, like, the government is a huge organization. They can abuse that information just like anyone else can. They can use it to, I guess, like, cancel you in such a way where they can kind of like arrest you and press charges on you and do nefarious things to you. Like, I don't know. People just seem to have a lot of trust in their governments, especially people in Western societies, because those kind of like things are limited in scope and they happen to the bad people or those people that aren't them, right? And this is obviously not unique to Western kind of like democracies. It happens all over the world, but it's kind of ironic that people will kind of like yell at China for all the stuff they do over their social credit system and things like that, and then gladly kind of like cheer on the US government sanctioning privacy preserving tools, right? Like, it doesn't gel at all. Just because it's happening in China and not in the US, like, you can say, oh, well, I trust the US government, I don't trust the CCP. It's like, you shouldn't trust governments in general. Like, they're not your friend, right? Like, they exist to serve, a society-wide purpose. They don't exist to kind of like, and a lot of the times they exist to serve themselves too. But that's getting into a whole nother discussion. And as I said, I'm not like a libertarian or a crypto anarchist or anything like that. But I do think that people kind of like putting too much trust in any entity, especially governments, is probably not the right approach there. So that's kind of like the TLDR and what happened with Tornado Cash. And what else happened as well, where I guess like I think Eric Connor here put out a kind of like a funny tweet where he said "shot chaser," where he had a screenshot of me, I guess like a couple months ago on the 17th of June, saying a lot of people are learning about the USDC blacklist function today. To clear things up, Circle, the issuer of USDC, can freeze USDC in any address at any time for whatever reason. This is the risk of using centralized stablecoins, just like using any centralized service. And then Jeremy Allaire, one of the founders, I think he's the sole founder of Circle, but obviously high up at Circle there, said not accurate, not helpful, FUD, read more. And then he actually linked an article under there to kind of explaining more there. And then the chaser is that Circle froze the USDC funds that were in Tornado Cash's addresses, because obviously Circle is a US-based company. By the Treasury Department sanctioning this means that that Circle is now kind of like aiding illegal activities by not freezing this USDC. So as I said, they can freeze for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter if it's kind of like if their hand is forced via legal reasons or if they do it for any arbitrary reason, they can still do it. So maybe some of you didn't know this, but yes, they have a blacklist function. They can literally blacklist any USDC anywhere on any chain that USDC is on, and they retain full control over that. And that brought up a discussion over centralized stablecoins or stablecoins in general, and how we need truly decentralized alternatives to USDC, USDT, BUSD, things like that. We have, I guess, like you could say, semi-decentralized ones like DAI. Obviously, DAI is majority or a lot backed by USDC today, so that USDC could, in theory, be frozen, and then DAI would become unbacked. There are kind of like some others out there that people kind of like cheer on, but I actually don't think that we have, besides maybe RAI and maybe LUSD, the rest of them I don't consider to be decentralized, right? In terms of like true decentralization there. And honestly, I haven't looked into LUSD and RAI enough to make like a definitive comment, but from what I've seen in the smart people that I've spoken to, it seems those two are the only ones that could be considered truly decentralized. And I think maybe even just RAI is like 100% truly decentralized because it's just backed by ETH. It doesn't really have any governance, kind of like, but it has different mechanisms of keeping its peg. So there are trade-offs here. But yeah, it really does beg the question of, okay, well, why are we like centralizing so much of, I guess, the liquidity and so much of the crypto space around these US dollar stablecoins when we really shouldn't be doing that, especially the centralized US dollar stablecoins? And then it goes back to, okay, what are the only truly decentralized assets, truly decentralized liquid monies within crypto? There's only two, BTC and ETH. But in saying that, it's only truly decentralized ETH when it's on Ethereum layer 1. Like even on the layer 2s, it's not, because the layer 2s are still centralized. So you've only got truly decentralized trustless ETH when it's on Ethereum layer 1, just like you've only got truly decentralized trustless BTC when it's on Bitcoin layer 1. So there's a lot of nuance here. There's a lot of things here to kind of like consider and think about. And this is why I always go on about the risk of using particular services, especially centralized services. Like, and I've said before, I don't think the governments are going to be kind of like letting this slide from their point of view, or kind of like not coming down harshly here. I've said before, actually, on the refill, that it's amazed me that the stablecoins have been able to flow as freely as they have for so long. I don't think that's going to last, guys. Like, no way. Because like you think about the way the kind of like US government operates, and just a lot of governments in general, they want control over financial kind of transactions. They want transparency over it. Like, they love the fact that the banking system today is pretty much like mostly digital, right? They're phasing out cash as quickly as possible, and then this kind of like decentralized alternative comes along, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and say, well, we're going to do fully kind of like decentralized, fully trustless, self-custody, digital banking, and we're going to also do privacy on it. Of course, they're going to look at that and be like, no, we can't have this, right? It's literally undoing the decades worth of work that they've done to make the entire financial system transparent to them for whatever reason. So if you're expecting them this to be the last thing that they do, and they only go after Tornado Cash and they only go after some other privacy tools, that's not going to be the case at all. They're going to go after everything that they can. They're going to start with the things like Tornado Cash, and maybe the more kind of like quote unquote things that they can paint as like quote unquote nefarious, right? But then they're going to go after the stable coins. They're going to go after the centralized exchange. They're going to lock it down as much as they possibly can. And that's why I said at the start in my tweet that building decentralized tools is now more important than ever, especially when it comes to privacy, right? And that's not to say that Tornado Cash isn't decentralized, right? It is, but it's not just the smart contracts. It's the front end. It's the blockchain it's built on. Right? It's the kind of RPCs. So Infura and Alchemy are both based in the US. They could start censoring at the RPC level anytime they wanted to. And they're probably going to have to do that, because by not doing that, they possibly are breaking the kind of like sanctions and breaking the law, right? And that goes into the whole other discussion of, okay, well, if I kind of like on my full node or in my validate a transaction that happened through Tornado Cash, am I liable for that? Or if someone kind of like sends funds to Tornado Cash and then withdraws it to Sassal.eth, am I liable for that? Am I breaking the law because I received funds from Tornado Cash? And then you can kind of like start diving into the fact that this regulation is very rushed. These sanctions are very rushed. It doesn't really make much sense, doesn't gel with reality, and there needs to be more thought put into this. So that's all we can kind of really hope for, is that more thought eventually gets put into this sort of stuff and saner heads prevail. But, this just seems very reactionary. And as I said, I do think it's due to the North Korea connection, where the fact that they took that amount of money from the Ronin bridge hack and they washed it through Tornado Cash and all that sorts of stuff. Like, I really do think it's because of that. But yeah, I'm going to leave that one at that. I guess, like, I made a little joke here that, sanctions aren't going to prevent criminals from using Tornado Cash. And, after all, criminals already know they can just use banks to safely launder their money. And this is a joke, but it's reality. The amount of banks that have been fined and caught, letting kind of like people launder money through their systems is pretty much every bank in the world, like every major bank at least. So it doesn't really stop anything here, but that's a whole different discussion. I just wanted to kind of like bring that up there. Peter Van Valkenburg from Coincenter here had a great blog post about this. You should go read for more details on this. So I'll link that in the YouTube description below. And finally, I think to wrap us up here on the Tornado Cash side of things, we have Vitalik, which I guess this was a timely post. This happened before the sanctions, but he posted an idea about stealth addresses for NFTs. And this is a low-tech approach to add a significant amount of privacy to the NFT ecosystem. So you would be able to, e.g., send an NFT to Vitalik.eth without anyone except Vitalik, the new owner, being able to see who the new owner is. So that's pretty cool, right? And timely, but also happened before the sanctions happened. So I guess like even more timely. But yeah, guys, like it is a messy situation. It's definitely not something that's going to work itself out overnight. I wonder if eventually these sanctions are going to be lifted, and then there's just kind of like regulations. The saner regulation would be, even though I don't agree with this, the saner regulation would be to prevent people that have kind of, I guess, like used Tornado Cash to send their kind of like coins to centralized exchanges. But that still has holes in it. Like it's saner than the sanctions, but there's still holes in it. Because as I said, what if someone sends me funds from Tornado Cash, says, points the withdrawal address from Tornado Cash to Sassal.eth? Does that mean I can never send coins to a centralized exchange again, right? Like this is why it's really hard to regulate this sort of stuff. And then people can say, well, can't we just block certain kind of like contracts from interacting with our address? That's not how a blockchain works. You can't actually do that. Like there is no way to prevent someone from sending me funds from whatever address that they want to send me funds from, or send anyone funds from, right? And to do that would require a protocol level change. It would require literally putting a blacklist in the protocol, which is unworkable, right? It's not going to happen, and no one wants that. So the regulations, the rules, everything needs to be updated for this digital crypto age, or we're just going to keep getting this reactionary stuff. And I think we will, because it's just sad. Like, and the government moves really, really slowly. So they're just going to keep taking this kind of approach where they can, I guess, like use their hammer on crypto as if it's like a nail, like any other kind of like financial activity, when it's not. It's very, very different. And they're going to keep justifying it with, anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing. Then they're going to bring up the other stuff that they always bring up, like, child pornography, things like that. They always use the same talking points whenever they want to go after something that they don't find desirable. And this is why I have like a lot of big issue with people who say, well, you're only using Tornado Cash if you're a criminal. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. All that's like, there's so much issues with that line of thinking that I think people who say that are really just in the privileged position of not having to worry about kind of like, or not, maybe not even thinking about it correctly, right? Not having to worry about, I guess, like the government coming after them or things like that, which again is the wrong line of thinking. And it just goes down like such a deep rabbit hole of kind of like political philosophy and all that sorts of stuff. I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to leave that at that one because there's a bunch of other things to get through today. But yeah, that's my kind of take on it. I guess you guys all have takes on it as well. I saw the Discord channel absolutely blow up with it. I actually woke up to this today, and it was kind of funny because we actually had a hotel room in the city, and I was there and I looked at it and I'm like, oh God. I'm like, okay, well, I can't catch up with this on my phone, so I'm going to like do a quick thing on my phone and see what it's all about. And then I got home and was just like, okay, what's happened? Oh my God. So I can obviously report on it on the refuel. But yeah, leaving it at that. All the links will be in the YouTube description below for you. All right, on to happier news, merge-related news here. So, Tim Biker put out a reminder that Görli Prater merge is scheduled for later this week. If you run a node, now is the time to upgrade, and you can always check the ETA on bordel.wtf. So the current ETA is Wednesday, August 10th at 10:52 p.m. UTC time here. So I don't know what time that is for me. I actually have no idea, so I can't do the conversion right now. But yeah, you can obviously convert it to your local time zone there, but it seems that's when it's going to happen, on August 10th at 10:52 p.m. UTC. And you can also see a kind of like tweet here from Parithosh as well, kind of reminding people that that Görli is merging very, very soon. And if you're running that node, please update. And there's more information here on this Launchpad link, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you as well. Trent kind of like shared, I guess, his merge roadmap again today. The image of his merge roadmap here today, yesterday, updated as of August 8th. You can see here that we are so incredibly close, right? We are doing Görli on August 10th. Then we are going to choose the TTD, terminal total difficulty for mainnet on the next all core dev call. I believe that we may even choose it on the consensus dev call, which is happening this week, but it may get pushed to the all core dev call, which would be next week, I believe. And then we have the Bellatrix, which is the consensus layer fork, and the Paris, which is the execution layer fork. Those clients are being released, obviously before the fork happens. Which is and for just a reminder here, these forks need to happen in order to get both the CL and EL ready for the merge. And then the TTD hits, the proof of work will be hot swapped for proof of stake, and we have that nice energy reduction there as well. And then finality will be reached after the usual 2 epochs of 12.8 minutes here. So that's it, guys. Like that's it. That's all we've got left till the merge. There's no more. There's probably going to be shadow forks and things like that. But in terms of the major milestones, this is it. Görli, Bellatrix, and Paris, which are basically formalities to former hard forks to kind of go in and get activated. TTD being chosen, and then the merge actually happening. We're so close at this point. Obviously, I'm not going to kind of like go on about how close we are anymore because it's probably just over 5 weeks out, which is very exciting. And Trent also put out a post here. One of the last merge community calls is happening on Friday, August 12th. I think this will be maybe the second last merge community call. There shouldn't be maybe 3, maybe 4. Maybe I don't think there'll be 3 or 4. So there'll be another one after this. So this is a merge community call that you can join here at Friday, August 12th at 2 p.m. UTC, which is 10 p.m. EST or 10 a.m. EST. I believe it's 10 a.m. EST here as well. So you can check this out. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so there's a nice image here put out by EtherWorld, which is a quick recap of all the shadow forks done until now. You can see all the shadow forks here. Up the top, we had the G shadow fork. Oh, sorry, that's not up the top. It's kind of like done in a timeline with kind of like top and bottom here. So we have GTSF, which is the Görli testnet shadow fork, and then we have MSF, which is the mainnet shadow fork. So you can see here we've had 10 mainnet shadow forks and 6 Görli testnet shadow forks here, which is very cool to see. I think we're going to have a few more. I mean, I don't think there's any more Görli ones scheduled, obviously, but I think we're going to have maybe 1 or 2 more, I would say. Maybe even 3 more mainnet shadow forks before the merge happens. And then that's it. We won't be doing any more merge-related shadow forks. But I believe for future upgrades, we're probably going to be doing shadow forks still. This is, as I said before, this has been something that is new to the Ethereum ecosystem. We didn't do shadow forks before for any upgrades, and it kind of became a thing with all the merge developments happening. So very cool to see this. Very nice image here from EtherWorld. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to check out as well. All right, so the Protocol Guild announced that they have completed 2 important milestones over the weekend. They have begun distributing vested assets of $1.7 million directly to members and have updated the split to reference active contributors from 111 to 119. So now there's 119 people on the Protocol Guild split contract that is kind of going to be getting a share of the funds that they have there. So you can check out the split update transaction on Gnosis Safe here, and you can go see the Dune Analytics dashboard for the kind of like relative member weight and kind of who's getting what here. So you can see the percentage allocations, the addresses associated with it, what's been vested, and what the total funding is for each address, which is very, very cool to see. I've shown this dashboard before. I'll link it in the YouTube description again for you to check out. All right, so we have a couple of 1559 related images here from Takenstheorem today. So this is, I guess, a post here from Coinmetrics, actually, that Takenstheorem has kind of taken and shared on Twitter. You can read this post. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But this basically shows that the evidence of that MEV no longer able to capture as much value now that EIP 1559 introduces a base fee that all transactions must pay at a minimum. So you can see on the left-hand side of this image, if it wants to load, before EIP 1559, lowest 10,000 blocks by gas price. A lot of them got pushed to the right. You can't really see because my camera's covering it, but got pushed to the right-hand side here. And then after 1559, the lowest 10,000 blocks by gas price, it's all kind of like bundled up and there's not really anything on the right. So it just smoothened it out. And that's the whole point of 1559. It wasn't to reduce gas fees, but was to smoothen them out. And that, as I said before is because of the base fee mechanism got to do with MEV. So to put it in simple terms, before when MEV was being captured, before 1559, you were able to kind of like pay, go completely out of bounds and not have to pay any ETH to the base layer. You could just pay, basically, you could have like a zero Gwei transaction go in because you would pay the miner directly, right? But now that's no longer the case with 1559. You have to pay ETH on the base layer because the base fee isn't ETH. You can't do zero Gwei transactions. The base fee right now is 10 Gwei. You have to pay 10 Gwei because of the fact that the protocol will not allow you to put a zero Gwei transaction in because of that, the base fee has to be paid in ETH. So we got rid of that negative externality there, and by doing so, we were able to smoothen out a lot of the kind of like gas fees here and smoothen out the MEV that was extracted as well, which is very, very cool to see. And the second image that Takenstheorem put out here is a better visualization of how EIP 1559 smoothed out the gas fees. You had before, after, and recent. So before, it was very, very erratic, you can see here, and I'm sure a lot of you that interacted with Ethereum Layer 1 before 1559 experience this erratic kind of like gas fees. Then you can see after it, smoothened out a lot more, and recent blocks, it's still very, very similar in how it kind of like smoothened it out. So just another kind of, I guess, like way of visualizing the fact that 1559 made the transaction fee transaction fee market much smoother, which is obviously a very big upgrade for everyone on Layer 1 Ethereum. All right, so moving on to, I guess, non-Ethereum core stuff here. So Polynya put out, shared a governance post that they posted on the Optimism governance forum, where they kind of like captioned it by saying, "A few days ago, I drafted a proposal to pause funding activities on Optimism, primarily citing regulatory risk. I believe we now have precedent to take the matter more seriously. While the proposal doesn't have much support, I will personally abide by it." Now, the TLDR of this proposal is that the reason why Polynya wants to pause governance fund voting cycles is because the Optimism is currently extremely centralized. Like pretty much everything is centralized. Fraud proofs aren't in place. The sequencer, the validators, all of it's centralized. It has a centralized key. Honestly, guys, like it's more centralized than pretty much anything in crypto today. Like it's as centralized as a centralized exchange. Like I love Optimism, I love Layer 2s, but as it exists today, it is not in any way decentralized. So I do agree with Polynya that that's a big risk, especially in light of recent events with Tornado Cash, and should go give this full post a read and all the responses here and give their full tweet thread a read as well for justification for this or reasoning around this. And I think that's good reasoning because like having such a centralized service isn't just a risk of like, say, for some reason, just as a hypothetical, Optimism got sanctioned and they had to basically block all US users from their protocol. I mean, it's an impossible ask, but basically they would have to pause the protocol in that kind of like in that case, right? But also it's a big risk in the fact that what if the Optimism team's keys get compromised and someone was able to drain the entire system because of the fact that Optimism owns everything. The foundation owns everything, basically, right? So there are all those kind of like inherent risks there from that extreme centralization. So I do think that Polynya is right here, that maybe the incentive should be paused because right now the incentives are leading to a lot of TVL and a lot of activity on Optimism, which is great from a growth perspective, don't get me wrong, but it's also scary when Optimism is still very centralized. Now, their fraud-proof system isn't actually coming with Bedrock, which is coming in Q4. I think their fraud-proof system is going to be called Canon, is going to be coming in Q1 or maybe Q2 next year. And I don't know if that's going to be fully decentralized fraud-proofs either. Maybe centralized ones too. So I would have a feeling that by the looks of things, we wouldn't expect even like a maybe minimum decentralized Optimism till maybe the second half of next year. So there's still a while away here. And it's also a kind of like thing of balancing decentralization and growth. Like I get that, but I kind of like sympathize with both sides here. And I definitely sympathize with Polynya's argument. So give their thread a read, give the governance post a read, I should say. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to check out. All right, so we have a fresh guide here from Alex Connolly, which is a co-founder and CTO at Immutable. So this is a ground-up guide to zkEVM and EVM compatibility and roll-ups, and this is basically a 21-minute read. So again, if you read John's kind of like a complete guide to roll-ups the other day, it may have covered some of this, but if you want even more than that, I think it was 80-minute read, you can read this blog post from Immutable X here today, which is about a 21-minute read, all about specifically zkRoll-Ups, the EVM compatibility, and roll-ups in general too. So yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to check out. But good to see that we're getting so much literature, so much writing on roll-ups in general and on zkEVMs and zkRoll-Ups and things like that, because I think there was a lot of confusion over the last few weeks, especially around zkEVM. Because of everyone being like, no, we're a zkEVM. No, you're not a zkEVM. Or we were the first one and we weren't the first one. And all this sort of stuff. Like, just craziness around that. Like, I'm glad we have more literature here to kind of like expand upon and read more about and educate ourselves, because at the end of the day, we all need to kind of like be aware of what is an actual kind of like true zkEVM, which ones are decentralized, which ones are going to work, which ones aren't, what EVM compatibility actually means, and all that sorts of stuff kind of like around it. So I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go give it a read yourself. All right, so speaking of Optimism, they introduced something called NFT mirroring. So you can now mirror your Optimism NFTs on Ethereum mainnet, so you can display them on apps like Twitter. This will be dropping exclusively on Optimism soon, and you can check out kind of like Kelvin's PFP if you want a sneak peek. So basically, this NFT is on Optimism, but he's using this mirroring technique so that he can kind of have it on Ethereum mainnet and then verify it on Twitter. You'll notice that he's got the hexagon profile picture here, which means that this is a verified NFT coming from his Ethereum address that he's linked to Twitter. This is very cool because people have said before, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have my NFTs on layer 2, but like, how do I prove provenance on layer 1? Like, how do I, aren't they more valuable on layer 1? All these sorts of stuff. How do I interact with things that are looking for a layer 1 interaction? Well, you can do it with NFT mirroring, which is really, really cool because it's still a cryptographic proof that you own that NFT. It's just not on layer 1, it's on layer 2, but it's kind of like acting, obviously, it's mirroring it like it's on layer 1, and you can use it like where you use all your other NFTs if they're on layer 1, which is very cool. I wonder if you could do mirror trading or something like that. I don't know if you could. Maybe you can. Like, it should be possible to do such a thing where you have a mirror NFT on layer 1 Ethereum, you go and sell it on OpenSea, and then the ownership of that mirror NFT gets transferred to the buyer of it, and then on layer 2, it also gets transferred to them. So through the kind of like contract. But technically, it should be possible to do. I don't know how gas intensive that would be. I don't know if it would be desirable, but I'm kind of like curious how that would look. But in terms of just kind of being able to prove that you have that NFT and to use that with things that don't support layer 2s or don't support Optimism specifically, this is a really cool feature. So I'm very excited to see this go live on Optimism soon. So I'll link this in the YouTube description. I think there is code on GitHub, maybe to look at, maybe not. I don't know yet, but yeah, this is very, very cool. All right, so another really cool thing out of the Polygon ecosystem is, and this happened a few days ago, actually, I forgot to cover this, that one of the largest education departments in, Maharashtra, man, I'm butchering the kind of like pronunciation there, but they have issued 100,000 plus verifiable digital diplomas on Polygon enabled by LegitDoc here. So this is one of the largest on-chain credentialing systems in India. Very, very cool to see. This is awesome. Like, I think so. This is an Indian state. That's the word that I can't pronounce here. They have a population of 112 million and a $400 billion GDP. That's huge. And they've issued these digital diplomas on Polygon. That's actually huge, guys. Like I see people kind of like often going on about using NFTs for things like, documents in general and diplomas and degrees and stuff like that. Well, it's actually being done now on Polygon through, I guess, like this LegitDoc service, which is very, very cool to see. And you can kind of like expand this to any unique document that you want or any sort of document that you want. Obviously, a blocker here would be privacy. Like, for example, you don't want sensitive documents being open to the world. And again, this goes back to what I was saying about privacy before, guys. Like, it's so insane that people think that if you want privacy, you must be a criminal. Like, some people actually think that, which is just insane to me because, like, I use a simple example with people, like, sometimes where I say, okay, do you, like, in a public restroom, do you keep the door open when you go to the toilet, right? Like, no, right? You close the door, right? Because you want privacy. Like, just a simple example like that, and then people say, oh, right? They get kind of like stumped on that. You should use that example the next time you have someone that kind of says to you, oh, I've got nothing to hide, I've got nothing to fear. And like, okay, well, then why do you do that then? But that's orthogonal to I guess, this. But just generally, like, institutions, whether they be kind of like educational or otherwise, definitely care about privacy, right? They want privacy, they want kind of like privacy preserving tools because they don't want their for example, if they're a business, they don't want their competitors seeing all of their stuff, but they still want to be able to use on-chain kind of like activity. So yeah, I think from that perspective, the privacy stuff is very important, but also very, very cool to see that this state in India, which is obviously very, very big, has 112 million people living there, which is just crazy to me. Like, Australia is so small compared to the rest of the world that, like, it has 25 million people in Australia, 8 million in Melbourne. This, and I should say 8 million in maybe Victoria or something like that. Or 9 million or something like that. This state in India has like over 10 times the amount of people that my state has. I can't even fathom that many people, to be honest. But yeah, anyway, that's getting off track a little bit there. Very cool to see this. I'm hoping it continues. Obviously, very cool to see it on Polygon. And I can't wait to see what else gets kind of like shaken out of this. All right, we're coming up on the end here. I didn't go too far over, which is nice. But basically, just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Show Me the Crypto podcast here. I went on for a second episode with them, and this one's all about the merge. So basically, I spoke for, I think, about an hour and a half about all things got to do with the merge. Definitely go check it out if you haven't yet. It was a really fun discussion. With kind of like Wade and Ulf here. They're really great hosts. I love their show. I love kind of like, especially their intro for their show. It's really funny. It's like a parody of Show Me the Money from that Tom Cruise does in that movie that I've forgotten the name of. But yeah, go check out this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. It was a very fun episode. And speaking of appearances, I'll also be going live today at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time with Collective Shift to talk about the merge as well, right? And talk about kind of like all things Ethereum, the merge, scaling wars, upcoming narratives, things like that. So, and that's going to be on Twitter Spaces. So I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go set a reminder for yourself before this happens. I'm excited for that chat as well. But I think that's going to be it for this long episode today. Again, apologies for not putting an episode out yesterday. There will be kind of like times like that where it's just like, okay, well, I'll just wait a day. You know, I'll take a little bit of time off there. And I also didn't put out a newsletter yesterday either. But yeah, anyway, I'm back. Be around for the rest of the week. So I'm going to end that one at that for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.